First item is the adoption of our agenda. If I could get a mover, please, to adopt the agenda as circulated. It's been moved.
Actually, no, I'd like to make a motion to defer item 9B, advocacy priorities and actions, to the fall.
Okay, let's just get we'll get the agenda on the table first, please. We'll get the seconder to approve the agenda, and then your suggestion, is to move that item. Do you want to speak to that?
I think if I make a motion, it needs to be seconded before I speak to it.
Okay, so the motion to remove that item to the fall is moved. Can I get a seconder? Seconded. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to raise a concern about process and communication. On June 16th, a proposal was circulated by Trustee Sluice suggesting the addition of the advocacy priorities and actions item for this meeting. I responded the same day, expressing support for the idea in principle, but clearly recommending we wait until September to ensure there's enough time for thoughtful input, especially considering recent updates to Policy 7 and the typically heavy June workload. Despite this, the item has been added to the agenda, which I received Friday at 5 p.m., without further discussion or acknowledgement of any feedback, either from Trustee Sluice or the Chair. This is disappointing, especially given the stated intent to hear all trustees' thoughts and build consensus. I would respectfully ask that we remove or defer this item until the fall. We can all give it the appropriate time and space it deserves. I also ask that moving forward, when trustees are asked for input, our responses are respected and reflected in next steps. That's how we as a board build trust, model transparency, and inclusive decision-making. Thank you.
Okay, the item on the agenda is a report on the actions that we have made. I don't believe that there's no motions attached. I don't know, Trustee Sluice, if you wanted to speak to that.
I think the feedback that Trustee Carlson provided is actually addressed in that what we're doing today is talking about what are the efforts that were taken over the past year, and we can begin the discussion about where we want to head next. But we're not planning on getting to the level of detail that I think you're talking about today.
Any other discussion?
Through the Chair? Well, I just saw this email that was sent at 3:30 today that has an awful lot of work on it. So obviously there's been a lot of work, and that's great. It's just surprising to me again, as there's been no communication whatsoever in regards to my response to the request to hear our thoughts. There was no other emails sent to the group regarding this. I would have been happy to work on this with you. So I wonder, has anybody else worked on this?
Yeah, I don't want to belabor it, but what Trustee Sluice has brought forward is a report about the actions taken over the last year. So it's just a description of what has been done, so that everybody has the same information. I feel like that would be valuable to inform a future discussion. Trustee Andres?
Thanks. Yeah, I think it is important that we inform people each year of the work that we accomplish as we get towards the end of June. I'm sensitive to what Trustee Carlson is saying as well, and I feel like if we can potentially have a space on the agenda in September for a discussion of these priorities, but at this point this seems entirely informational in nature, and so I'd welcome this update, and I think members of our community would welcome this update as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Trustee Connolly.
I agree, the informational piece, but I guess, is it part of the agenda package? It wasn't. So I guess that's the concern here is, the agenda came out quite late, and then receiving that at 3:30 before our meetings that start at 5 p.m. was just problematic. I certainly agree with sharing the information and being open and celebrating successes and work done, but I think it's just a little frustrating when it comes out so close to our meeting, so we have not even had a chance to perhaps add to it or comment on it is the biggest concern to me.
Yeah, fair point. Trustee Sluse?
I'm happy to pull the item.
I was going to suggest, is the board comfortable receiving the information, but ensuring that there isn't a discussion good. Okay, no. Yeah, go ahead. I believe it's in the latest package. No. Okay. Okay, it's not in the published package. No, no. Okay. Okay, you know what, fair point. And I actually think under our board policy, if yeah, if something, well, it was on the agenda, but the documents weren't. So yeah, I think that's maybe point is taken. Trustee Andres?
Yeah, I just wanted to call the question.
So on the amendment then to defer that item to the fall, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. So we're back on the main item or the main agenda as amended. Were there any other questions or changes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, so then we have just a few minutes to fly through here. First is motion to approve the minutes as distributed for the May 27th regular school board meeting. Can I get a motion to that effect? Thank you. It's moved.
I actually sent in some minor changes to the recording secretary. I'm not sure if they've been noted. They're very minor.
Yeah, thank you. Those were, I saw those as well and noted them, and we'll make sure that they're reflected in the final. Did those go to all trustees? Okay. Okay, so we should maybe defer adopt those minutes until we circulate the revised. If that's, is there any reason we need to do that in any haste? No. Okay, great. So if that's okay, let's just table that and bring back the final version. Then we could get a motion to approve the minutes as distributed for the June 3rd special open board meeting. That's moved.
I'll say again, I sent in changes to clarify these minutes as well.
Okay. And those are received, but we would have to circulate them back. Okay. Okay, and I think that was based on the video, the motions as to follow the motion exactly as worded. So if that's okay as well, let's just table that and get them. I think so, yeah, if that's okay. Okay, then we're at our presentations and ready to welcome Student Symposium findings presentation. Thank you so much. Come on up. And just remember to, if you can push down the button and make sure it's green when you're speaking. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. So nice to see you all again. I will be graduating, so this is the last presentation that I'll be giving. Before I start, I just wanted to say thank you for all the opportunities, and I've really enjoyed representing the School District 40 during my time in Student Voice. Okay, thank you. So, Eva?
So to start, today we'll be talking about our Student Symposium findings. We will cover the 4 main umbrella topics, so diversity, equity, inclusivity, and anti-racism, also known as DEIA, mental health and wellness, student success, and student safety.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we have all of our categories are put into like what we can consider to be like future resources and implementations that have no cost to them. So something that, or minimal cost. So something that we could consider in terms of inclusivity is ensuring that fairness occurs in gym classes, because we did have some students testify that like their peers aren't willing to pass the ball to them, like because they're a girl, or the guys tend to pass to each other a lot, and the girls don't really feel included in that space. So, yeah, so like students also mentioned that they weren't a big fan of DEI presentations because they felt like those presentations didn't really connect with the students, and they would have loved to have more content in the form of books. Yeah, and then provide staff with further professional development on DEIA topics, because teachers, they have to be like a jack of all trades, so students wanted their teachers to be more comfortable talking to them about these issues. Next slide, please.
So moving on to mental health and wellness, starting with the free implementations, students want a greater ability to report anonymously. So this can include bullying. We know that there are resources that include anonymous reporting. However, we want to make them more accessible and advertised for students. Students also noted that the BC Lions presentation was great. I do believe that there were a couple presentations and they were all a hit. There's also stuff about the counselor roles. We want to emphasize the importance of counselor to student information confidentiality. Students have reported that counselors have been sharing information that wasn't severe enough to be shared. We understand that counselors do have a duty to report information if a student's health is at risk. There's also stuff about the wellness center workers going to each classroom for a few minutes to advertise it. Students notice that the presentations in classrooms tend to be more important and tend to help them learn more as they can share more comfortably and ask more questions. We also want to create a more universal policy for object confiscation. This is primarily about phones and electronic devices. Students believe that teachers have very different roles and ideas of what to implement the policy as, so we want to make that more clear. Students in the middle school also want a paper sign-up sheet for the counselors. So there are online ones. However, students also want to be able to access it through paper. And they want a way to ask health questions anonymously. So this can include a box to put questions in and have someone post the answers each week, as we know that these questions are very important to ask, especially in middle school. Next slide, please. So some future resource considerations is to better prepare staff to handle issues that arise in school. This could be mental health issues or fighting, anything like that. As long as teachers are more educated on these issues, it can help a lot. There's also vaping, drug use, sexism, and conflict resolution. We want to provide information to students about these topics if needed. The school nurse at middle schools. So at the high school, we do have a nurse practitioner, and it has been quite helpful for students, and students would like to have that in the middle school as well. A class specifically for mental health and well-being. This doesn't have to be a class on its own. However, it can be implemented in, say, PE classes, as students want to have a section about that being about mental health and wellness. And then these ones are repeated a little bit. Next slide, please.
So we would like more counselors at every school except for Glenbrook. So we also had an open meeting with the counselors at the high school shortly after the student symposium. And one of the counselors told us that she has been working at the high school for 8 years. So when she started, the high school had 1,700 people. And now we're approaching 2,600 people. So as you can see, the ratio between students to counselors has shifted quite a bit. And we did find that that was a trend in the symposium, that every school except for Glenbrook felt a need for more counselors. At Queensborough, students would prefer that the administrators do not also hold the role of being counselor, right? Because sometimes students just want somebody to talk to. They want to feel heard. And if they have to go to an administrator and have that administrator play the role of a counselor, the student might feel concerned about how, the other people in the picture might be punished or what have you. So they would prefer if that role, like if, the vice principal is a vice principal, a counselor is a counselor, like that sort of separation. Ava touched on this earlier, a class specifically for mental health and well-being. We understand that this is meant to be part of, the career and the gym curriculum, but a lot of students told us that they were not getting any education in regards to mental health and well-being. Specifically, education about diet was recommended, and, like sexual education on like consent and boundaries and that sort of thing. They reported that they weren't getting it. Yeah. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So student success. So, first of all, something that often comes up at Student Symposium is the proficiency scale. So, of course, that's a thing within the province, and we cannot change that. But students have thought that it would be helpful if teachers could hand out a rubric of their usage of the proficiency scale. So, at the beginning of the year, you have a solid understanding of how your teacher marks it. You know, maybe there's an example of like a project. This project would be a 4, this project would be a 3. That way, students have a better understanding and they're not kind of guessing and checking with each of their teachers in each of their classes to see what marks they would get. We had a request for more quiet workspaces, like maybe the hallway or the library. This is on a case by case basis, but students would like to open clubs and sports leagues to all grades. This is in the middle school. So some students would be in grade 6, for example, and they would say that, a club or a sports league was only open to grade 7 and 8, and they wanted to be able to participate. So for 4, we always have offline options for assignments and projects. So Kaylee and I heard a story of a student who did not have access to Wi-Fi at home because of financial reasons. They had a presentation that they had to create, was a PowerPoint. So they had to stay late at the library at night to finish their presentation. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's not okay, right? So we need to have offline options for all projects, and they need to be available to the students. We don't want a student to go to the teacher and say, "Can I have an offline option?" It should just be available for those who need it. Next, students would like the option to stay indoors during intense rain. Yeah, sometimes the rain is just really intense, and students reported that they weren't always allowed to stay inside. Lastly, high school directions or information should be published in the middle school newsletter at the end of the year, just to make the transition a bit easier. Next slide, please. So there is a peer tutoring club at Glenbrook. Students had really positive feedback about that. And people at Fraser River Middle School also wanted to implement something similar. So that's something that we could focus on. We also had discussions about training teachers to accommodate students with different learning preferences. So some neurodivergent students, for example, they fidget a lot, right? And they don't want their teacher to be punishing them when they're not doing anything wrong besides just moving a little bit. So, if teachers could have a better understanding of what those look like in a classroom, then that would enable us to have better relationships. Students like the Big Buddies group, so that could be something that we continue. And in terms of the bathroom, students reported that feminine products should be stocked more regularly. Students would appreciate cleaner washrooms, and maybe there should be walls between urinals. Lastly, this one is pretty difficult because it's very subjective, but we thought it was important to mention because it comes up at every symposium that I've been to. And that is the issue of students saying that teachers kind of overshare with them a little bit. They call this trauma dumping. Right? I understand that if a student feels uncomfortable, that's something that they should discuss with their teacher or a trusted adult. But maybe we should have some kind of discussion about what is okay for teachers to share and what's not okay for teachers to share. So because this just comes up at every symposium without fail, so it seems like there could be something that we do about it. Next slide, please.
Lastly, we'll move on to student safety. Next slide, please. So some free implementations for this is class discussions about locker use. So students want to have class discussions about this with their teachers about how to use lockers rather than having a large presentation or assembly with all students. EGMS also has reported issues with lock breaking, which is a big thing. Some middle schools also want hallway passes. And third, discussion groups with guest speakers deem more impactful than gym presentations. I touched on this earlier with the Wellness Center presentations. Having presentations in class allows students to feel more comfortable sharing or ask questions, and it's more personal connection between them and the speaker. Lastly, to teach students that people who use drugs are not all bad people, but rather they are struggling with addiction. There's a negative connotation with drug abuse, and we want to teach them that they're not bad people. This is just a bigger issue that they need to understand. Next slide, please. And some future resource considerations are blinds in all classrooms, especially in the high school. We've had issues with that with the glass walls and lockdown safety issues. Some middle school classrooms also have glass with no blinds, and that can be distracting or a safety issue as well. There's also long-term follow-up meetings with struggling students, whether this could be mental health issues or addiction issues. And thirdly, we have signs directing e-scooters to go slower and be aware of cars. This is a big issue, not just being aware of cars, but also being aware of pedestrians. So we could have designated areas for them to ride, including bike lanes. FRMS and QMS students request better covered area outside for lunch when it's raining. Rakea also touched on this, as many students feels that they don't like being in the rain, and sometimes inside can be too crowded and teachers want them to go outside. So having an undercover area can give students more comfortability. They also want more accessible food for students without food options. So students report that teachers get annoyed or mad at students who ask for food. But this could also just include having snacks. And lastly, providing access to cold weather clothing for students who don't have their own. Even if we can't provide specific clothing, we can also advertise areas that can provide more cost-effective clothing. Next slide.
All right, thank you for listening. Does anybody have any questions or anything that you would like us to clarify?
Awesome, thank you. Trustee Dhaliwal.
You guys whizzed through that. I feel like that was so fast. Good job. I do actually have a lot of questions, but I won't ask them. I think what I will ask is just from staff. Like, I guess this is really helpful information, and I guess I'm just wondering, what do you guys do with it? And is this shared with the DLT? And like, can we expect updates? And can student symposium or student voice expect updates on all this?
So actually, this would be shared with DLT, and obviously everybody on this, the board office team has it. When we bring to the board the operational plan next year, you will see elements of what we put into that operational plan as things that we're addressing that come from this as data and also other sources of data. So you'll see it represented in our operational plans by department. You'll probably see it different things identified in different schools in their school plan. I would say that probably some of the goals and targets would be for this kind of issue to show up in a different way, in a qualitative way next year when we do student symposium. So would we perhaps see students mentioning improved quality of presentations because they're happening in classrooms? Or would they notice greater continuity in terms of sexual health and consent education, those kinds of things? Because all of those are pieces of what we've already started talking about for the operational plan next year. So when you receive reports from each of the directors or district principal or whomever on these things, you should see actions addressing much of this in those reports.
Okay. And I'm sorry if I missed it, but does it come back to student voice in a coordinated way? I feel like that might.
I'm
be
sorry, what
wrong.
was the question?
Just, do you guys receive a report back on kind of how these pieces landed?
I don't
don't
believe
think
we
so.
do. Maybe Ms. Kwan does, but she is not
Okay.
here to tell us.
Okay, well, it's maybe a suggestion to see if there's a way that it could circle back, because yeah, these young people do a lot of work, and I know these results are read really closely.
I wonder if an option might be for myself and Associate Superintendent Lawler, when we have our operational plans complete, to meet with Student Voice to take a look at the initial presentation and then how it's reflected in the operational plan. Might be a good way for you to see those linkages.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Do we have any more questions, or should I introduce our next execs?
We have more questions.
Okay, yes, please.
Trustee Andres.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Great job as always. The board's been, we had this conversation last year after your report, and I guess I'm hearing something on consent education and feeling like it wasn't as well put forward this year again. So I just had a question for staff, if we can, maybe the board could just kind of get an update on, how we're teaching consent education at the high school, and just maybe what progress we've made since last year in this area.
Go ahead, Superintendent.
So we have a sexual health educator who's been working in the high school, middle school, has been doing presentations and supporting instruction in all of those schools, including Recap Power and so on. We've started meeting with the nurse, public health nurse assigned to us through Fraser Health and other staff to talk about what is our progression in terms of these important elements of the curriculum being taught, and what mechanisms do we need to put in place to ensure that they are. So, not just that we know it should be, but what's the mechanism that we use to know when and how, so that we can ensure that students have received that important learning.
Thank you. Trustee Connolly.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you to the superintendent for the follow-up items as well. So the piece, just in terms of follow-up in the operational, I'm thinking it would be, I obviously don't want to tell folks, but maybe even a presentation at the next year's symposium to really show, highlight, here's what was asked last year. Here's so students are, even who are new to the process are seeing, wow, I have value and what I'm doing here is really valuable and produces some action. So, because I know it's nice to to know that. I'm also, I know around the consent and mental health and well-being, but specifically the consent piece. Has there been any movement from the province around that? I know that there had been a few years back quite a bit of push for some of that to be embedded into the curriculum, some direction from the province. So I think that's something that maybe we as a board could look at, spend some time this summer and talk with some folks, and maybe there's some advocacy that needs to happen around that. Looking for that to be incorporated into the curriculum, with obviously funding for training and resources, because I think it has been, like Trustee Andre said, a repeat piece that's been brought up, and I think that there's definitely room for the ministry to get involved in that as well. So thank you. Thank you so much, and
course, my
congratulations on
pleasure.
your graduation as well.
Oh, thank you.
Trustee Sluice.
Thank you. Very thoughtful of you to sort the recommendations into those that are free and those that require resources, particularly in difficult budget times like we are experiencing right now. I also noted that a lot of the areas of focus that you identified in your presentation are very closely linked to the focus areas in our new strategic plan. That's a really good thing. It means we are going to be focusing on the right things, like student experience, caring and supportive systems, and creating a sustainable organization. So it's just reassuring as a board member. I also noted that a lot of what you brought forward in your presentation are priorities in our advocacy plan. Increased basic per student funding, mental health. I would have loved for you to hear about updates, but you'll have to wait till September. And I also just want to say thank you. The work that you have both done on student voice has been really thoughtful. And I am confident that you both will do very well in future endeavors, but I want to wish you good luck. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Trustee Carlson.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on your graduation. I wish you both the best moving forward, and thank you for all the advocacy you do for all the students. I really like the idea of a presentation being done to show the students that all the work they're doing actually produces results. I think that's actually really important, and I'd like to see that moving forward. I'd also like to work with other trustees here and see exactly how your presentation aligns with our strategic plan and how we can work together and advocate for and with you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you both.
Wonderful. Well, I think you wanted, sorry, your next piece of intros.
Yes, we wanted to introduce the people who will be replacing me next year, and joining the student voice exec. So we have Sadie. Sadie, stand up. And this is Kaylee. Yeah.
So we'll let them introduce ourselves and they will be continuing student voice next year with me as Rike will be leaving and then it will continue on.
Yes, you may have seen them at Student Symposium because they were both leading discussion groups and they did a fantastic job. So a lot of the information that we've gotten here is thanks to them.
Like they said, I'm Kaylee.
And I'm Sadie.
And we're just super excited to be moving forward. I know I've been in student voice since grade 8. I went to my first symposium in middle school, and I knew right away it was something I did want to pursue in high school because I saw the actual change that did happen, especially in frosting the glass and like real things. And so I do think that I'm glad it got brought up this meeting, that it's cool to actually show student voice and other students what the change is getting made, like actual change is happening.
Yeah, I just joined Student Voice this year. This is my first year, and I really enjoyed the club. I thought Student Symposium was super interesting to hear from all the students. I was interested in Student Voice from grade 9, but I just didn't have the courage to join in my first year. But I'm super excited to work for great change next year.
Yeah,
And
we're gonna get
I'm-
lots
yeah.
done.
We have a lot of ideas. So yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Have a wonderful summer and we're looking forward to spending time with you next year. Thank you all. Okay, that was awesome. We are at, next item is an update from our superintendent.
They're leaving. How do you know mine won't be good? That's pretty rude. Just kidding. So we a couple of weeks ago, Secretary Treasurer Ketchum said, at the end of the year, usually the superintendent does this massive presentation about what we've done this year. And I went, oh, dope, because I hadn't been here last year, so I didn't know that. So anyway, the team did awesome work to get us to this point. And so we had a conversation about sort of how to make it work thematically. And so what we know is that this board and we all did a lot of work this year on the new strategic plan. And so we stole a line from Captain Jack Sparrow and said, we have our heading. And that's sort of the theme that we applied to this presentation. And you can see the cool little New West Compass Rose logo that Mike made. That made me really happy when I saw it. That's pretty neat. Yeah. So away we go. Well, how's that for appropriate? But we had our 7th annual student symposium. Really great conversations happened there, and it culminated with today's presentation. And I think it is actually really exciting, as Trustee Sluice said, to see the alignment between what the students are identifying as things that they need in their classrooms and in their schools with what the board identified through the process of building the strategic plan. Next slide. So now you did all that work and we have the plan and we're off to the races. It sees us focused on research supported practice and data informed decision making related to all priorities in our system. Next slide. You saw great partnerships acted upon this year in our advocacy plan that was built and then implemented throughout the year. Lots of work done in order to bring forward issues of importance to us, and certainly issues that are important to the children and families we serve. And I know that we're not alone in that work, but I think that some of the work that was done by this group was unique in terms of the breadth of partners that came to the table together and spoke with in harmony about the challenges that we face and what we need to do greater things for kiddos. This year, we did a lot of work as a system moving forward. Our commitment to being a fully inclusive learning environment for 2S LGBTQ children, youth, staff, and community. visibility initiatives have taken place, and that committee is continuing to do important work around how to deepen that work and ensure that it just becomes who we are. And we started this year building a team around a whole bunch of little pieces that had been here for a little while, and then adding. Was so fortunate to work with the directors that were here before. And obviously I came in July, and then we got lucky and we got Geraldine to come to us in September. And we've been working really hard to build our team around the vision of the board. I think it's actually was pretty great timing that this new group of people came together as a new strategic plan was taking shape. It allows us to build team around shared goals.
Oh, could we go back a slide? Because I just wanted to add to that previous slide. So one of the points made here is that we welcomed principals and vice principals into the conversation around strategic plan. And we had a DLT and invited our extended management team as well to examine the strategic plan and ask questions of each other in groups. And we've developed a school/department planning tool that we're going to use to guide our work next year. So the schools will do their planning for their school improvement plan, but the departments will also be engaging in that work so that the alignment is across district. So we're really excited about that piece. And so, yeah, so, okay, so now we're going to start hearing stories from our schools. The 2024-2025 school year has been one of recognition and awards, and staff and students are continuing to demonstrate excellence across our district.
So people would have seen in media and certainly pushed out across social media this amazing accomplishment, Noah receiving a $100,000 scholarship to study in STEM, which is a testament obviously to the hard work that this young person has done through their many years of school. And I think we can be proud of the contributions of staff and community to creating an environment where they could flourish. It's pretty exciting. Next slide.
Okay, and this amazing student, Udea Opigo, is going to be receiving an $80,000 Beyond Tomorrow Scholarship Award from the University of British Columbia.
Texted Ken Headley and said, "Hey, can you call me?" It's like, oh, why am I called? And told him how proud and excited they were to receive this scholarship. It's pretty amazing. How about this? Librarian of the Year Award. If you spend any time in that library, you'll understand why. It's a remarkable, warm, and wonderful place. And so that's pretty exciting too.
Okay, and then we had a drum group that was invited to teach students at QEE. So Rhythm Resource Drumming taught QEE students about drumming and music from cultures around the world. Students got to demonstrate their learning and enthusiasm for drumming in a performance that they put on then for families. And we believe that music is very important, and music is very important to the QE community as well. And the school has a strong music program led by the music teacher, Lindsay Miller.
This is pretty cool. And this kind of aligns with the kindergarten transition events that I saw as well, where families were coming in to get a feel for their new school. But there have been amazing transition events like this planned across the system where littles and then middle years kids got a chance to be in their next school and get a feel for what it's like and meet the people who will care for them. And this was a pretty cool event.
Okay, then showing our pride.
We already did that one. Yeah,
We did this one?
it got in there twice for some reason.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So now to celebrate early learning and childcare. So our hearts are on fire with good stories, stories created in the classroom, stories of laughter and courage and grace, problem solving, exploring the world, perseverance, all stories about what it is to be human. And a child has 100 ways of being, learning, and caring. And we tune into those moments we have with our children, and we realize that their stories are happening for them all the time. We observe with curiosity what's happening each day and catch and share the stories and move them forward. The story this year is the story of children as caring citizens. Caring for plants and worms and ants are not material or resource in a lesson, but an opportunity to connect with the natural world, to form a habit of gentleness towards plants and all living things, to care for the environment, and to notice each other in the process. The important thing is we stop and we listen to what students have to say, what they're saying to each other, and we use that to guide the lessons that we teach. Literacy initiatives to enhance teacher efficacy. We had 35 teachers, including ELL, SLP, and LSTs, participate in a 4-part series that was led by Kate Wynn and Kim Lockhart, and that was from September to December. Kate and Kim are 2 very well-respected educators from Ontario who champion the Ontario Human Rights Commission Right to Read. Okay, a little further on our literacy initiatives to enhance teacher efficacy. POPPY, which is the Provincial Outreach for Early Years, is working with Squamish Elementary and has been doing that throughout the spring. Teachers learned how to use an early literacy tool. They analyzed data together and learned more about what structured literacy really means. Poppy also worked with members of the District Literacy Planning Table with a focus on systems change to support evidence-based literacy instruction. Now, numeracy initiatives to enhance teacher efficacy. This year, the district provided an opportunity for professional learning with a focus on numeracy. Members of the numeracy network represent each school site. During the course of the year, teachers shared effective strategies to teach mathematics and learned various number routines to implement and share with colleagues. Teachers also identified areas in mathematics instruction that they require more support with. This group will continue their work next year, focusing on developing formative assessment for each grade. Okay, next is mental health resource fairs in the fall and in the spring semesters at NWSS. We had community partners join in celebrating mental health and talk about the resources that they have available. So we have our list here of community partners that we'd like to recognize: Fraser Health, Purpose Society, CYMH, New West Youth Center, the District SOGI Committee, and Indigenous CYMH. Next, I'm very pleased to share some meaningful strides that I believe we have made in Indigenous education this year. So in this slide, we are highlighting the graduation at NWSS. We know that the foundation of student success is built on trust, connection, and a strong sense of belonging. Our Indigenous department staff play a vital role in strengthening these ties, and they serve as a bridge between families, schools, and communities. Their deep relationships and cultural understanding help to create space for open dialogue, mutual respect, and shared responsibility. Through their work, we ensure that Indigenous students feel supported in every aspect of their learning journey, academically, socially, and culturally. And it is through trust and connection that students can thrive and be successful. I want to also note that in supporting students, it's very important that we also provide support to those who are supporting our students, and that is the Indigenous Education Department. So this year,
we have taken intentional steps to invest in their growth and well-being by launching a coaching series with Len Pierre Consulting. And this opportunity provided space for dialogue, reflection, knowledge sharing, and strengthened practices that ultimately support staff and in turn uplift our students. And so that work is guiding our work throughout the year next year. We have plans already in place to continue this work with staff, building skills and capacity through a cultural approach. Next slide. Now for Indigenous Education Council and guiding implementation. So a true commitment to Indigenous education must be guided by Indigenous voices. This year, we work to establish the Indigenous Education Council in collaboration with Kakite First Nation. This council ensures that Indigenous perspectives are central to our decision-making, leading with strategic leadership, informed guidance, and a commitment to Indigenous priorities. The strength of this council comes from its representatives, with members from Kakite First Nation, Musqueam First Nation, North Fraser Métis Association. We have an Indigenous parent and a community member from Douglas College. We believe that we are creating a collaborative framework grounded and shared in responsibility and respect. This council is committed to ensuring that Indigenous students are not only represented, but truly seen, heard, and supported in ways that honor their identities, histories, and future. This year, we have chartered new waters, and we have had to adjust our sails on occasion. We plan to build on the momentum that we've gained, strengthen partnerships, and continue to purposefully create opportunities for staff and students. We believe great things are happening and that even greater things lie ahead. DEIA Reimagining and Rebuilding Communities document update. This document will let us connect equity work to the classroom experience and learning. And the document is in place, and we're aiming to publish the document in September, and it will be shared with the board. Advancing inclusive education. So I'm excited to share how the district has been deepening our commitment to inclusive education through enhanced training, funding processes, and partnerships. So first, we have noted LST training and procedural knowledge. We've provided specialty training to our LSTs on ministry designation requirements. All documentation tools and resources are now centralized on our district SharePoint, and that helps to promote the universal language and a streamlined process across schools. This also helps to ensure that our files are compliant and audit ready, which is a critical piece for this sustainable practice. We are launching in August a professional development series. We put out a call for 20 seats in this series, and 22 people responded, so we will be welcoming all of those people. It's called Principles and Practices of Inclusive Education, and it's designed to equip passionate educators to become certified LSTs. So if someone is interested in becoming an LST, this is a great place for them to start their journey. We're also investing in education assistance by offering ongoing training through partners like Kinsight, so they can continue to meet the needs of a wide variety of learners. We continue partnering with community agencies, and this year we expanded our collaboration with external agencies, including OTs, PTs, counselors, and medical specialists. These partnerships have allowed us to provide targeted and individualized supports and ensure our students receive the care and the wraparound service that they need. We've also been working through our transition to competency-based IEPs, and that's one of our biggest shifts this year. This new model is more student-centered. It focuses on strengths and learning goals that align with BC's redesigned curriculum, and we are already on our way into this transition and on track to have all IEPs updated to the CB IEP model next year. Ministry designations. One of the key ways that we support students in inclusive ed is through ministry designations. And this process allows us to be advocates for students, providing that supporting documentation showing the need for additional support. This results in a targeted, individualized plan focusing on students and their specific learning goals. One of the pushes this year has been to look at the secondary designation of students, not for funding purposes, but to allow us to provide a more fulsome understanding of what's going on with the student profile, and that's helping us to target our work. Next slide. Now, in this slide, I'm showing you some data to show our trends in enrollment and in designations. Here you can see we've taken some numbers over the past 5 years to show you the school-aged headcount and designations that we saw in September 1701 and again in February 1701. We've paid particular attention this year to behavioral and mental health concerns, particularly those students with R and H designations. And our middle years development instrument has clearly shown us that this is a growing area of concern in our district. Yeah, sure.
Does this include, when we're saying designations, is that including ELL students under designations, or are we just talking about?
This is not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Could we see the next slide, please? Now, on this slide, I pulled out a little bit of information from that previous slide, just so we can zone in basically on some numbers. So looking back to September 2020, our schools served 6,812 students. Today, that number has risen to 8,316. Now, please note that these are school-age students. And that marks a 22.1% increase in enrollment over the 4-year period. Okay, even more significant is the rise in designations, growing from 649 in 2020 to 948 in 2024, an increase of 46.1%. But beyond just those numbers, the designation rate itself has shifted. And in 2020, 9.53% of students were designated, and today that number is 11.40%. Okay, this slide is just to harken back to what I mentioned earlier about the CBIEPs and to highlight the transition plan. So as I said, we are well on our way to have everybody designated and within the CBIEP platform. And so we believe that we're well on our way with that, as I mentioned in an earlier slide. Next slide. We wanted to take a moment to highlight some great work at one of our schools. In this case, we selected Queensborough Middle School, and we believe that they are leading with intention and with heart. They have taken as a staff a focused commitment to inclusive pedagogy, ensuring that every learner, regardless of their needs, has access to meaningful, supportive education. In the fall, their support team came together and recognized a gap. There were many students facing significant challenges, but without a comprehensive wraparound plan for support. And that realization set the stage for their transformative year. They worked through designations and Tier 3 supports. From September to June, the team worked collaboratively to designate 24 students, bringing their total number of designated learners to 60. To put that into perspective, 15% of the student body at QMS is now receiving Tier 3 supports. These are the most intensive and individualized interventions that we have. And those supports include, but are not limited to, progress monitoring, behavioral therapy, counseling services, small group instruction, and much more. This is not a one-size-fits-all. These are targeted collaborative efforts to meet students exactly where they are. QMS has also done a lot of work on their school-based team and collaborative decision-making. Teachers, EAs, and support staff are working together, ensuring every student has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
The result is a stronger, more responsive system where the sum is truly greater than the parts. They work on their school-based team meetings, and those happen weekly, and they're collaborative. Classroom teachers and support staff come together to solve problems and identify unmet needs. It's a proactive, responsive, and effective response. Next slide.
I just heard like a lot of questions in the community I've heard a lot of questions in the community just, around the use of EAs. And so I was wondering if you could just speak to that, if we're using that Queensborough Middle School, those numbers. And you talked about, I think it was 60 students with tier 3 interventions. Would all of those students be working with an EA, or what would that look like potentially in a school environment?
So I think you would differ based on the student, and it would differ based on the approach of the teacher to meeting the needs of that students. And I think it would differ throughout the day for an individual child. So depending on what they're doing, it might look like working with an EA in the classroom. It might look like working with an EA in another space. Sometimes it might look like working in the classroom with their classroom teacher, while an EA walks about and supervises what's going on with the rest of the class while the teacher is still present. But it's going to differ significantly based on each child. So one of the challenges, no, it's not a challenge, it's a truth. One of the truths that exist is that while a designation might carry a specific letter, that letter doesn't define the child. That's why Associate Superintendent Lawler was talking about having multiple designations and trying to get a picture of the whole of the human. So you may very well have someone with a designation that matches their peer 2 desks over, but what they require can differ pretty dramatically. And so the whole value of the IEP is taking into account the unique nature of each learner.
Yes.
This is fantastic work that's being done. I'm wondering if these students that are being assessed, whether they will eventually, or whether we will eventually have provincial funding for the extra help.
So as we designate students, certain of those designations do come with ministry funding. So not only does it help us to provide the support and be able to see what students really need, but it also enables us to access funding.
Thank you.
Do you want to continue?
I will. Okay, and then this last slide on the Queensborough work. So we have appreciation through collaboration. So at QMS, they spent a day where they just recently had an EA appreciation breakfast, recognizing the dedication, compassion, and care that our support staff brings to their work each and every day. So it's just a powerful reminder that everybody is working together. We have teachers, LSTs, ELL, EAs, principals, and then the community people that I mentioned earlier that provide those additional supports. So it's so important to recognize people and for the work that they do. And looking ahead, we want to continue this work at that school, QMS, in a culture of shared responsibility and of celebration. And we're very proud of the progress that they have made and are even more excited for the days ahead as they continue this work.
So before I go into this slide, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that obviously a presentation like this doesn't capture all of the things that are happening in all of our schools. Not present in that presentation was the amazing things we saw happening when Fraser River Middle School's band concert, the first one happened, and the junior band played. I thought, oh my. And then when I went back to see them a week and a half ago, I thought, oh my, the change in what occurs there because staff lean in and kids practice is amazing. It doesn't speak to what it was like to go and watch students in grades 3 to 5 do amazing little speech presentations at Lord Kelvin today. It doesn't speak to all of the amazing things you see in schools. They're examples of, and we'll make sure that next year we sprinkle in examples from other schools. But what they do speak to is that we have excellent things happening throughout the system. And the more we lean in on the notion of collaboration, working together, trying to build a greater level of coherence from school to school, the more that we'll be able to learn from one another. There are staff teams in our schools who are themselves amazing providers of professional learning to their peers down the hall. And why not be amazing sources of professional learning to their peers in another school or in the same grade level across the system? That's the work that's going on through the course of the next number of years. This slide speaks to the fact that while there's lots to be excited about in a year, that we faced some challenges. Certainly, we had a cyber attack that that put us in a really challenging position for a long time, and staff leaned in and did amazing things, and so did the students we serve. The level of patience and grace demonstrated by our partner groups and by employees and young people and families was remarkable. We lost someone that we love, and the way that people from neighboring communities and our own communities leaned into the children and families that we serve and love in order to hold each other up was remarkable. And I know that that I'm grateful for that demonstration of strength. Like a family, there's differences of opinion and challenges that exist all over the place. But when we really needed each other, we lean in, and that makes me proud. Next slide, please. So the next steps are to bring your strategic plan to life through operationalizing it. And as we'd indicated earlier, operational plans will be brought to you in the fall that are built around the goals inside the strategic plan, and they'll be presented in such a way where you can see the data we use to and the research we use to inform our practice, inform what we're thinking and what we're planning, and what our targets and measures will be, so that we can provide evidence to the community we serve and to you as our board that the things we're doing are helping us make headway toward the goals within the strategic plan. You've heard discussions already of collaborative professional learning that has been happening and will happen through the course of this strategic plan in order to make sure that we're able to learn from one another and share the great learning that we have. We're committed to research-supported and data-informed practice, which is to say that we will work really hard to support teachers having access to support for amazing practice that's research-supported, and help them have access to data, real-time data, that will allow them to make adjustments to their practice in order to meet the needs of individual students in their classes. And we're going to attend to those foundational documents that guide education in British Columbia. Those range everything from the School Act through to regulation and policy that exist here in curriculum, ensuring that we're attending to the expectations of all of those documents and that all of our children have access to what's expressed there in a way that meets their needs. We have lots to learn as a system. Every system does. But we're also blessed to have an amazing staff and to be in a community that cares about how well we do within 4 kiddos and for the young adults that we serve. And those things all strengthen us, that help us to see what our challenges are, but they also help us to identify pathways forward. And so we're very excited about the operational plan that will accompany the strategic plan and the things that we'll accomplish in the years to come.
Okay, well, that was a lot of report. I think more than we were expecting, and and also not distributed in the packet. So we'll no pressure if people want to send questions in after the fact as well. Trustee Connolly.
Gosh, sorry, that's horrible. Thank you for this presentation, and it's really nice, you know, in a difficult year to see this kind of positivity. So really appreciate it. It's a nice way to end the year on a positive note after some of the things that we have been faced with this past year. I'm just wondering, I guess maybe I should have put forward the question at the beginning with the agenda. And I'm wondering if maybe it's going to come under the operations update, but just if there's any update around the Simcoe Elementary School, as well as any development with regard to the Integrated Child and Youth Team application.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we understand that Treasury Board will meet throughout the summer, and we're hopeful that we'll get some decision coming out of those meetings regarding Simcoe and other projects. But at this point, we're standing by. We're waiting to hear what comes of that. We have developed a proposal for what we think an ICY could look like in our system. We're working with Melanie and with Rick Blodell and Melanie Smith to sort of tie that up. I just want to remind the board and those listening that ICYs to this point haven't been granted through application. The government takes a look at data that exists across communities and then just makes decisions about which communities they'll offer it to. We're making the case that the data has moved so quickly in our community because of the rapid growth that perhaps they're not seeing what actually exists on the ground for us, and making the case that notwithstanding the fact that they don't take applications, they should really look at us right now. And so the staff, I will say, who take care of ICYs across the province have actually been very receptive to our calls and have been willing to give us advice on things considered. They certainly do want to hear what we see and feel and know our perspective on what we need.
Thank you. Trustee Andres.
I want to thank the senior team and Superintendent Davidson for the leadership of this. I think sometimes we, as a board, get focused on the things that are beyond our control, and it's important that we focus on those things that are beyond our control. But it is also our responsibility to make sure that the things we do control, we do to the best of our ability. And I think that the systematic nature of the way we're organizing information, organizing departments, organizing everything. There's a lot of clarity, I think, for people coming into New West Schools who aren't a part of it, for students coming in, for families coming in. And I think this is amazing work. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where this kind of data takes us and where we can see that impact on student learning as my own kid gets ready to come into the system. So, thank you so much for this work. It's very clear, and I think it will have a positive impact.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Then we are, I think, ready to move on to, in our agenda, to correspondence. So you have a letter from the Minister of Infrastructure, Bowen Ma. That's a response to the letter that we sent about portable funding. Just would also note that our work on that is being featured in the BC School Trustees budget document, which was published today. And so that work continues. We received a response to the letter around accessibility, or no, sorry, we've sent the letter around if only it was that quick, right? Accessibility funding. Thank you, Trustee Connolly, for bringing that forward. And Secretary Treasurer is bringing, and the committee, yes, thank you, bringing forward for our attention correspondence from the BC School Trustees around Bill 15, the Infrastructure Projects Act. And I think you wanted to highlight a few things about that.
Yeah, so Bill 15 was introduced and passed, I believe, last month, and it's legislation that is directed to speeding up the permitting and approval process of key infrastructure projects in the province. Schools fall in with that umbrella. And so it's targeted to streamline a number of significantly identifiable projects, such as those for Crown corporations, local governments, etc. They have some implications for school districts, of course, insofar as the Ministry of Infrastructure is authorized to deliver on new schools on behalf of districts.
Now, this has a number of question marks, I think, for school districts in terms of how we deliver capital projects. If the ministry is targeting the delivery of these projects on behalf of school districts. When I asked ministry staff about what that directly meant, there were a lot more questions than there are answers. And I think they initially indicated that there isn't quite the capacity, even though this is some direction that ministry is moving towards, there isn't the capacity to be able to all of a sudden create a network or a team of individuals to start delivering on capital projects. And it's also not intended immediately to target districts like us that have the track record and staff structures of delivering on major capital projects. So initially, I think this is more to support smaller rural districts that don't have a lot of capital projects or history with them. So I don't think there's any immediate impacts to our district necessarily, especially as they relate to the Queen Elizabeth project that's already underway or the Simcoe bill that is currently under funding approval. And who knows where the direction will be when we get around to building the middle school. That's still a number of years out, but certainly a lot of questions regarding Bill 15 with our municipal partners, with the capital delivery branch themselves. But for now, we've been told steady as she goes. Our process and our contacts are still the same as they were, but something to for sure keep an eye on.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Trustee Connolly?
For trustees here, I think there will be, we're looking to have a presentation around Bill 15 at the Metro Branch meeting in September, so just plugging for that. I did have a question about the letter, the response from Minister Ma. It's a bit of a, obviously, I think for all of us, a bit of a disappointing response from the initial letter. But I do have a question. I think I've asked this before and I think I know the answer, but just wanting to get some clarity. So those funds, it's known to everybody, the ministry, to us, that they will be reimbursed once the project is approved. So how is it not possible then that we can technically spend those funds possibly in a technical deficit, but with the understanding from the ministry that those funds will be reimbursed, so we're not actually in a deficit?
I think typically in unusual practice, we have seen ministry once they are supportive of a project follow through with the funding. The unfortunate part of it is that the time lag between the initial investigation and the actual funding can be a number of years. To some extent, the district is risk managing and making certain assumptions based on that track record of reimbursement that funding for what we've already spent will come through. And presently, we have no indication to believe that those commitments won't be honored. But certainly, it does present some challenges, as you're indicating, in the interim phase where we are paying up front with operational dollars with the hope of being reimbursed years later.
And just for those who might be listening, that is related to the reimbursement of the costs of exploring for school site feasibility, right? So it's in addition to portables, actually. Okay. Anything further on that piece then? Okay, seeing none, we're at board committee reports and we have we have 3 committees reporting out and minutes of each. First being the minutes distributed for the June 3rd coordinating committee meeting. Somebody want to move adoption of those minutes? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion arising for the minutes or the meeting, I should ask? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next is our first set of minutes, or our first report, I should say, of the audit committee. And just a note that this is a new committee that's been formed by the board to add additional scrutiny to our audit process and includes an external member who we're very appreciative of serving. It is an in-camera committee, and so is reporting out here as attached. So if you could get a motion to receive that report, please. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, motion is carried. Lastly, the committee of the whole of June 10th, if we could get a motion to approve the minutes as distributed for that meeting. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are carried. Okay, reports from senior management. We have a few things looking at the year ahead. First of all, the 2025-26 board and committee schedule. Secretary Treasurer.
I notice my name is attached to each and one of these management reports, so I don't know if I should grab a glass of water or what, but here we go. So the first step, 7A, refers to the 2025-26 board and committee schedule for your consideration. Included in your packages is a one-page detailing the various committee and board dates for the 25-26 school year, detailing anything between the first of the start of school to the last board meeting proposed for June 16th. You'll notice a variety of meetings included in there consistent with policy 7 and 8 of our board policies. We have a number of committee of the whole meetings, which again is a newly formed structure within our governance structure that was passed earlier this year. We also have our standing board meetings that are scheduled for the fourth Tuesday of every month, as we typically have done, for 5 o'clock and 6 p.m. respectively. Also introduced January of this year is a coordinating committee, which is a partner group meeting to talk about various topics that the board would like to hear input from our partner groups on. You'll notice that dates fairly closely align with the dates that we had this year and take into account various statutory holidays and so on and so forth. So the scheduling meets those needs and takes into account those considerations, including winter and spring break. You'll note that the committee of the whole meetings are referenced for in-camera only, with opportunities to create open meetings as necessary, and perhaps some feedback would be welcome from trustees about some opportunities to schedule in more explicitly open meetings for the committee of the whole throughout the year. The in-camera opportunities for the committee of the whole are geared to talk about items that are either preliminary in nature or confidential and sensitive throughout the year, engage in some robust conversations with our senior leadership team on some additional data points. Thank you. And as you can see, continue with the opportunities for hybrid and in-person meetings to maximize the opportunities for our community and our public to engage with the board. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. Trustee Connolly.
Yeah, thank you for this. So I'm just wondering, and I think you talked on it, if we could include some open opportunities for the committee of the whole through the year, and also if we can include the committee dates, the accessibility committee, the SOGI committee, all of those committees, if they can, as dates become available, if they can be populated in the board work plan as well.
Trustee Carlson.
Thank you. Do we need a motion to add?
Yeah, I was
public
just
with-
going to ask if a trustee might want to move that 3 open committees of the
Yeah.
whole be added to the schedule. Yeah, do you want to move
So
that?
move.
Been moved. It's been seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried? Great. And then does somebody want to move a motion that they're not necessarily board committees, but that committees, subcommittees be added, I guess.
Sure.
Okay.
Does that one require a motion? Okay, yeah, just
Just do it. I don't know.
yeah, sure, to include in
Sure.
the work plan, motion to include in the work plan our committee meeting dates as they become available.
Great. Okay, moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. So that one I think was that for the work plan or the schedule? I'm losing track now.
For the schedule.
Okay, for the schedule, great.
And just given the changes, I will bring forward the copy in September, just as by way of update, so that the public has the opportunity to know what's been added, the board has the opportunity to see it. And away we go.
Wonderful. Trustee Andres.
Yeah, just hopeful that we could also potentially look at some other boards and maybe how they're structuring the work plan. So it provides a little bit more information for members of the public, and they have a greater idea of the work that's happening and the timelines of it. So would be happy to support with that. I have some ideas in mind and would be happy to meet and make some suggestions.
That would be great. If you could maybe send those to me, and any examples that you might have seen that work well. I think that would be great to look at over the summer. Any, Trustee Connolly?
Yeah, just wondering, so are we going to table the recommendations or do those with not as presented, but as amended then? Is that what we would, okay, thanks.
Okay, any other discussion then of the board meeting schedule as amended? Okay, seeing none, if we could then move to approve the 2025-2026 board and committee schedule as amended. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Carried. Great. Okay, on to the board annual work plan.
Thank you. It's a supplemental document to the board and committee schedule. What you'll see in your package is some proposed board work plans for the respective dates of not only the open board meetings, but the coordinating committees as well. As per the revision, we will bring forward a revised work plan, which includes topics for the open committee of the whole meeting. Those by their nature are a little bit more ad hoc, and so there may not be items slated for those open meetings. There may be an opportunity for some items to be brought forward by the board based on what is happening through the course of the year. But this represents the board work plan as created by our senior leadership team and learning team in terms of items that are not only legislated for approval, but also topics of interest and items that are consistent with the board strategic plan as was approved earlier this year. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions about the proposed work plan? Yeah, Trustee Connolly.
Sorry, just for clarification, then this isn't where we want to see the committee work be included in the work plan, like the advisory.
I think that the motions passed on the first document would inform the second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other discussion of the proposed work plan? Okay, seeing none then, if we could get a motion to approve the 2025-2026 board annual work plan as presented. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we've got some capital items to look at, starting with the eligible school site proposals.
Thank you. Included in your packages is a 25-26 eligible school site proposal. Again, this is tied to the long-range facility plan that was approved in October 2023. It is just a provincial legislation requirement for this document to be passed annually in consultation with the City of New Westminster. And it again is a document to support the requests that we're making to government on our capital plan, as well as ties into the school site acquisition charge that we collect from the city as a result of their development. So as you can see in the appendices for the report, there is a board resolution explaining what the purpose of this document is, and an attached schedule with some projections relating to housing and how that might yield in school age population. Admittedly, there will have to be some modifications as we undergo our long range facility planning. But you know, whether the number is indicative of 1,995 students plus or minus, I think the case has been demonstrated here of the tremendous need for land acquisition in the district. Schedule B supplements the proposed sites or neighborhoods, if you will, being in the Queensborough neighborhood, the Fraser River zone and Glenbrook zones, with the respective attached dollar value. Of course, those are purely estimates. We don't have necessarily sites identified for each and one of those properties, but they do indicate to government the proposed need for school sites in future, and is part of our capital plan submission later this evening. So again, the long-range facility plan will be endeavored to be updated in the upcoming year, and that helps to inform a number of decisions, including not only the board's capital plan, but the related requests for eligible school site proposals that go to council. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. So I'll just, if I could just preface that, I think this was a bit awkward last year as well, because we were after we'd done an update to our long range facilities plan, but then some projections had since changed. And so what we are passing here is in keeping with that long range facilities plan. And so, yeah, may not necessarily be our absolute current thinking, but needs to be informed by that long range plan, which is coming up on our agenda, just to say where we're at with the timeline for that. Apologies if I am repeating ourselves. Trustee Connolly.
Yeah, thanks. And I certainly understand the context, and this is where the numbers are coming from, but it was raised last year, and I will raise it again this year, that I question the historical context and the validity of that. I cannot wrap my head around under 2,000 students out of nearly 17,000 units. That makes no sense to me. I know that the percentages were included in here somewhere, but a quick Google search on my own was talking more like 0.5 for row houses and 0.2 for high and low rises. I understand that we're already portraying the need, but I don't think it's worse than what we're portraying. And I think that we need to address that. And I don't know where this historical information on student yield, how old is that calculation? Because I think, as we talked about, the integrated child and youth team, the data is changing so rapidly, and I don't think we're keeping up when we're giving projections that really, I don't think are reflective. I mean, I think we would be looking at more like, significantly more students than what we're projecting here. And I think that if we're putting numbers forward to the ministry and we want to be taken, as seriously as the situation is, I think they should be more accurate. So
maybe we can take in all the comments and then we can circle back if that's okay. I've got Trustee Carlson. No, sorry. Okay, Trustee Andres.
Well, yeah, I'm curious if we can just look back. We saw that 22% growth in the last 5 years that we just had presented earlier today. And so I was just wondering if we could go back. So we said we rose from 6,812 students to 8,316 students from 2020, 21 until this year. So I'm just wondering if we could look at the actual number of builds that were completed in the city and just use that and just see if our projections are accurate. Would we be able to do that comparison? I know not right in this moment, but.
Go ahead, Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, I guess I want to say that one, we're going to be reviewing our long range facility plan shortly. It does need to be reviewed, but I think the enrollment projections are a lot more complicated than just looking at housing. Yes, the city is building. Yes, there is a requirement legislatively, but also there are a confluence of factors that impact student enrollment, some that are happening right before our very eyes. We have seen a tremendous rate of growth recently. However, we have also seen a tremendous slowing of growth recently. The immigration policies federally that have been changed relatively quickly, the out-migration from BC to Alberta because of affordability, the lowering of birth rates that we have seen over the last decades, these are all factors that play into account on projections. Some may accelerate the rate of development, some might slow the rate of development. And I think those factors are all going to be examined as they have at every point in time where we've updated our long-range facility plan. So when we engage our consultants and they are reviewing various yield rates, and they'll be working with the City of New Westminster that has their own set of data points, and we can look at a broader subset of data, not just in New West, but just in the metro region, that will help to inform things as well. I think the legislation for the high transit oriented development will also be a factor. So there's a number of factors that make this more complex, including geopolitical factors and the fact that perhaps Canada is probably headed in for recession also impacts the rate of development. So while yes, the city will be built out in a number of years, the rate for which that happens might look very different from what we have seen. And again, I don't have that at my fingertips. We are embarking on that journey over the next couple of months. But I agree with you, the data needs to be updated, but I don't think it changes necessarily what is going forward in our capital plan, the need for the present requests, and perhaps there will be more that come as a result of our work over the course of the summer.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the eligible school sites proposal? Okay, great. Well, then I think we can move to the recommendation that the Board of Education of School District Number 40 New Westminster approves the 2025-2026 eligible school site proposals through adoption of the 2025-26 ESSP resolution. Can I get a mover? Moved and seconded? Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, which leads us to our 5-year capital plan.
Okay, so we're always tracking 1 year ahead. So this is the consideration of the 26-27 major capital plan submission. So we would be submitting this now for consideration of government approval in March 2026. Largely, the requests on our capital plan are unchanged, but you'll see a change in the dollar figure that's being moved forward. So I'll just walk you through the document. So from a school site acquisition component, this does not take into account this supported project for a new middle school site in the Fraser River Zone that we're awaiting funding for. But it does identify a few other projects that the district has moved forward in terms of our requests. So similar to last year, we are putting forward the requests for additional sites surrounding the middle school in Queensborough to support the growth of that community. We are also looking to put forward a request for the Recap and Power alternate program sites. The board will know that we have a lease at Columbia Square. That site is due for development. And so there will need to be a move of that program somewhere and a support for the need of a site acquisition, probably in some kind of business space, similar to what we have now, but just in a different and more permanent location that is owned by the district as opposed to a lease arrangement. So that's an $11 million request, which includes the cost for tenant improvements. We are also looking to further expand lands to support a Glenbrook zone development for an elementary school once the Sapperton Green development goes underway. It has been a slowed project, but one that we expect some point in the future will be catalyzed. And again, valuing the need for acquisitions in and around $15 million to placehold the need for land in that area. We've also continued to make requests outside of our existing Simcoe project to plan for future, knowing that the Fraser River Zone is a rapidly growing area of our district, and the need for some acknowledgement for additional land acquisition or airspace parcel of some kind in around the value of $30 million. In terms of new school projects, again, this does not include the Simcoe project, which has been supported, but we are waiting funding approval. But we would urgently request, as the board is well aware, a new middle school in the Fraser River Zone, which complements the land acquisition that we're waiting funding approval for. And similarly, a new secondary school in New Westminster as well. The current capital plan, the long-range facility plan calls for a secondary school in the Queensborough neighborhood to satisfy the growing population of secondary students in that area. Under the additions, we continue to request some additional capacity in the Fraser River Zone again, this time at Lord Tweedsmuir by way of a modular or prefabricated build to support 16 classroom addition. That is at a price tag of about $23.3 million. And related to the secondary school requests in the Queensborough neighborhood, you'll see here a small addition to support the growing middle school at Queensborough Middle School site for $17.6 million. In terms of replacement and renovation, again, planning for the Sapperton Green development, we've continued to put in to the ministry an indication that we will need a new school to replace Hume Park Elementary to be able to accommodate the growth in enrollment once that project and development is underway. That has a price tag of approximately $57 million. And we're continuing to ask for the small seismic upgrades to the existing Hume Park Home Learners program at a cost of $723,000. So in total, the submission categories for addition, new school, replacement, seismic, and site acquisition total $384 million. Pretty significant price tag. So there is a recommendation for your consideration. Attached is the submission summary to the Ministry of Education. While it looks brief, there are supporting attachments that go along with this. This is just the briefing that sort of summarizes the total requests that the district is putting forward. So again, same requests as last year. The numbers have gone up because the price of everything has continued to rise. So happy to answer questions if the board has them.
Trustee Delawal.
So thank you, Bettina. I think I want to start just by acknowledging that I fully understand that our 5-year capital plan reflects our long-range facilities plan, and I respect that alignment. That said, and I say this every year, so it should not be a surprise to anyone here, but I do not support moving forward with the proposed high school site in Queensborough as it's currently stated. I think that the proposed site is too small. It cannot reasonably accommodate the essential components of a modern school site that we are working towards, of having a middle school expansion, high school infrastructure, sufficient surface parking, as well as adequate green space. And these, I think we can all agree, are necessary elements, and squeezing them into an undersized footprint, I really don't think that's setting us up for success. And we've also already seen how complex and expensive it is to build in Queensborough through our Queen Elizabeth project. And we're not just talking about small increases here and there. We've seen significant escalations with cost and time. And that experience should inform our planning going forward. And I guess I just think we need to be realistic as well, just both for ourselves, for our community, and for the ministry about what we're putting forward for approval. Personally, I do find it very difficult to believe we could build a strong enough case to justify an investment of $100 to $200 million for a high school that would serve around 625 students at full capacity, especially when current enrollment in Queensborough of secondary age students is give or take 400 students. But beyond just the cost and the physical building, I do think we also need to consider the student experience. So secondary school with 625 students, we know this of small high schools, they would struggle to offer the breadth and depth of electives, academic programming, as well as extracurricular activities that we know are so vital for student engagement and success. But I also know that we've had internal discussions about what these different models could look like for this site. So, some of the concepts have been around, maybe a satellite campus with designated or specialized classes, or different grade configurations. But I do think as it stands now, it's still like our vision for it is still very unclear. And I also think that that lack of clarity contributes to misinformation in the community. And I think it's really important that, or like people deserve to understand what it is that we're aiming for. And right now, I don't think it's defined well enough. But I do think as well, with the refresh of the long range facilities plan, we as a board and senior admin, we have a real opportunity to reconsider our approach to secondary education here in U.S. And I think that's going to include asking some tough questions and really being honest about, okay, what's realistic, what's achievable, and really what's in the best interest of students. And, you know, I think that the solution likely lies in a larger, more central location. And I also think it would require us to engage in like some creativity about how we, and, you know, differently consider how it is that we deliver secondary education in New West. So I mean, you hear this every year, so thank you.
Gets better every year. Thank you, trustee Dello. Trustee Sluse?
Yeah, just a quick question, Bettina, about the increased value for the Simcoe build. What value is it that is attached to the project that currently sits with the ministry that's going, that it, and will go to Treasury Board?
I believe the number is 68 million.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's a problem, right? How do you get around, or how do you, because this will be submitted to this desk. And we know that a submission for Simcoe is imminent. How do we make sure that we get the dollars that we need for that school?
Yeah, so we submitted that a year ago. We have included elements of escalation in there. We had hoped that the project would come through sooner. We know that there are pressures, not only inflation, but tariffs. That will be a provincial, actually a national problem. So, you know, we've been told, you know, if projects are coming under pressure, we don't know what the mechanism is, but we do know that in order to preserve projects and to keep things going, government will have to come to the table with something. But you're quite right. The cost of projects is starting to run away. These numbers come from the ministry's program calculations. You plunk in the size of the school, it kicks out a certain factor. That is the first step of our requests. Once we get support for these projects, there is an expectation that we refine the calculations through quantity surveyors, supported by specific designs, site conditions, so on and so forth. And so this is just the opportunity for government to collect data on a level playing field. And then once supported, we have more detailed dialogues and, you know, supports by way of, you know, various experts putting in for their estimates as to what these projects will truly cost. I will say that when we built Kakite Elementary some 10 years ago, I think the project cost was $14 to $15 million. And now you're looking at a project cost of a similar size school of 68 million.
Wow, okay. Trustee Connolly.
Thank you. I had a question on the high school as well, but I looked back and I did see that in the last capital request, it was referred to as a wing as well, or a addition, but I did not have time to look into our long range facilities plan and see if that's how we were addressing.
Yeah, so the reason why it was referenced in the long range facility plan as a wing, when we speak to our capital planning officers, they suggested to put it in this way to make sure that the ancillary spaces are then captured appropriately so that you're not just dealing with an addition, because addition versus a new school comes with a different set of square meterages depending on the size of facility. So they thought it was in our best interest to submit it this way, even though the intent is sort of the same.
Okay. And then I was curious about the ask for the alternate school. It's my understanding that the ministry doesn't fund alternate schools. So
They won't say that. Then that's not their stance. However, I have never seen an alternate school being funded because the economics of it are challenging.
okay. So it's not actually on the record anywhere, because I'm wondering if that's an advocacy piece that we.
It's not that it's not on the record. I just haven't seen it be funded as a separate standalone. I've also went in conversations with ministry staff, know that is when you're looking at the number, like the size of school that you're trying to fund. And when they're trying to get the biggest bang for their dollar in terms of trying to service the number of students, it doesn't rise to the surface as a top sort of investment, so to speak. But it's not written anywhere that it's not supported. It's just usually the alternate education programs are held at a satellite site or one where there's capacity or things of that nature. It's not usually funded as a new build.
Okay. Sorry, just one more quick question here was, or comment. I guess I'm struggling, I certainly don't want kids to be going to school, in unsafe schools. And I'm referring to Hume Park. But I also question the value of making a submission, for, over 700,000 when I think in the not too distant future, we're looking at using that site, to help facilitate the growth in that area. So I think it, obviously it's something we ask. I just wonder even if the ministry would entertain that when the simultaneous ask is for a new school in that area.
Yeah, I think a tall order, but we wanted to bring it to their attention that one has seismic compromisation. It's not the worst level, but certainly wanted to bring their attention that that's on our radar of an area that we would like them to attend to while the school is in use.
Okay. I guess I just worry that would be a quick, cheap win for them to fund that and then say, you got something. That's what you're getting. So that's my concern by asking for it when maybe there's more pressing pieces.
Yeah, fair enough. I think probably unlikely because they could pull something out of the bottom of the list, but we do advocate in priority sequence, but it's a good point. I do think, there's probably should the government never replace that school, then long term, I think we do have some responsibility to the safety on the site. I understand it's more around the long term, like the building, the long-term use of the building, I think would be compromised in the event of a major earthquake. Sorry, I am off the list. Trustee Andres, it's randomly answering questions.
Thank you. I just had a clarifying question. I echo a lot of the sentiments that have already been spoken by my fellow board members here. I'm curious about, with the extended day at the high school, what does that max out with in terms of student population? So what are we visualizing in terms of the maximum number of students that will be supported by this schedule at the high school?
I feel like this would be a great question for the long-range facilities plan, but does anybody have that answer immediately, or do you want to follow up?
I mean, I don't have a specific number for you. I think a lot of that is predicated on student requests for courses and our opportunities to deliver them in the spaces we have. I will say that the challenge is, even though we've opened up blocks A and E for the extended day, blocks B through D are very full. And so the opportunity to provide that instruction is sort of hampered by the fact that you've got a very full middle of the school day block. And you've heard conversation around this board table about other opportunities to create capacity. And we've had conversations, but to refresh, it would include things like modifying international student enrollment. It could be modifying the internal collaboration spaces. It could be trying to find spaces to put portables where we are allowed to that are not on HCA lands, right? So there are opportunities, but the extended day isn't the silver bullet solution to bridge us through 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was, I just wanted to put that on the record here, just so we have that question. And we're thinking about it as we consider high school in the future. The other thing I just wanted to raise is I know we're doing all of this budgeting, like you said, we're pulling from all of these different categories and it has to go to vendor, and there's a lot of different elements that go into this. But I was just talking to at DPAC last Thursday. Yep. Thank you. And just many conversations with PACs over the last 3 years, and really hearing the need for climate resilience to be in our builds moving forward. And I don't think that it's a sustainable solution for us to be thinking of, putting air conditioning, for example, in every school. I mean, it's not good for the environment, right? And it is something that is perhaps not practical with a lot of our school structures and especially our electrical situation. So, just as we think about the importance of design moving forward, I think we do need to be considering those kind of pieces. And I don't think that schools are currently maybe designed with that in mind. So I'm wondering if that will add cost if we're looking at different designs. And then I'm also just, we talked before about, mass timber construction and how that potentially pulls us out of a reliance on the states as much, or factors beyond our control, I'll say. So I just want to say that here before we move into this more fulsome discussion. Thank you.
Okay. I know the BCSTA working group on capital tackled a number of those items, and Trustee Dhaliwal was involved in that and could speak to them, I'm sure. Any other questions, discussion on the 5-year capital plan then? Okay, seeing none, then I think it's time if we could get a motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 40, New Westminster, approve the 5-year capital plan, major capital projects as presented. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, and then we did ask if Secretary Treasurer could bring just an update to the board around the timing for that long-range facilities plan, knowing that there's always interest in when do we next take a really hard look at those projected numbers as well as how we manage our capacity? Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, we're looking to embark yet again on another long-range facility plan update. We have engaged our consultants yet again to start work on the enrollment pieces and enrollment projections, I should say, over the course of the summer. I think that is helpful for 2 reasons. One, long-range facility plan in terms of identifying major capital projects or land additions that we might require to support enrollment growth. But secondly, and more immediately, those enrollment projections do help us plan for the 26-27 school year. And so the intent would be in the early fall to bring forward the plan to the board for our conversation. Some preliminary considerations on how we manage the short-term pressures of the district. That will then go to the broader partner group through coordinating committee with conversations with that group, and then at the board table as well. Those will have to be done in and around late fall, simply because we have registration starting in November and programs of choice in January. So decisions for the 26-27 year would have to contemplate those dates to ensure that families are made well aware of any impending changes that have to be made for capacity considerations for the upcoming school year. In terms of the long-range facility planning itself, the idea being that beyond the enrollment projections and a potential refresh after the 1701, which happens at the end of September, that we then go through a consultation process from the timeframe of anywhere from November to February with an approval aimed for March 2026. That then is in alignment with the capital plan submission process for June 2026 for the following 27-28 school year.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions about that? Workflow timing? Okay, thank you so much. I think everybody's interested in that next round. Next item then is operations update, and over to our Executive Director for HR, Robert Weston.
Thank you. You will have noted that my name is not attached to any of the reports so far that are describing all the amazing things that our district is doing. But I will remind everyone that our focus is HR and that all of these amazing things are delivered by our 1,100 employees within the district. So with that by way of a backdrop, this time of year is a very busy one for us, but and a very exciting one as well, because the focus of the HR team is almost exclusively that of staffing our schools for next year. And that's our focus from the beginning of May right through to the very beginning of July. And then we take a bit of a break and we start right back up again in the middle of the summer to make sure that we can fill those vacancies that have appeared during the summer. We're sitting in a very good position, a position not unlike last year. And while clearly we are impacted by all of those factors that other districts are impacted by, I dare to say that actually we've done very well, and we seem to be impacted even somewhat less than others. So I'm very pleased by that, and I certainly give the credit to the team, the HR team that is working tirelessly to phone people up, to follow up on the postings, to see who's qualified for what, and it's really just a very, very busy time. So just by way of a bit of a statistical background, for the teachers, we've had in this short period of 5 weeks, 159 postings that have gone out. And all but a very few, and I'm holding my hand up because it's less than this, of those have been filled. The few positions that we have left, as you can imagine, are learning support teacher positions, primarily ELL and LST resource. And this dovetails very nicely with what Associate Superintendent Lawler was reporting earlier about our LST and Inclusive Ed program that we're putting on later in the summer. So if we're not able to find them and buy them, then we'll train them. So I think that that's a wonderful way to ensure that we have the resources there. Other than that, it's been very successful, and we've now finished all rounds. So we're doing the final filling of the positions, and then we will again pick it up in August to fill those that have gone off on various leaves during the summer, sick leaves and other leaves, to make sure that we have everyone in place for September. So that's gone well. With the QP side, again, the numbers are quite large. We had a total of 84 positions posted, plus 25 for summer school, which has not yet even started. That starts next week. So again, a large number. And you will recall thinking back just a few years ago where we didn't have any QP positions in our summer school program, and that's been a major advancement over the last couple of years. So that's another piece. The NWSS transfer and move to the 5-block model went well, and we're very pleased to report that 2 of the educational assistants in the high school did select to take severance. But everyone else within the high school and elsewhere in the district has found positions. And so although there was quite a bit of moving around, people deciding to go to another school, another location, etc., those 84 positions are all filled. So it's gone very smoothly, and I'm very happy with how the year seems to be ending up. We will scramble. It's inevitable. We will scramble a little that first week of September because there will be some vacancies that appear during the course of the summer. But we also have a good 20% more TTOCs on our list, and also the big push this summer will be for EA casual positions as well. So again, we seem to be quite well placed in that we seem to be able to recruit TTOCs and EA casuals onto our list. Probably, I think, disproportionate to our size in that, for example, we have 120 TTOCs on our list, and we're 1/10 the size of other school districts around. So I think disproportionately we do very well. And we've really modified and revamped our orientation program this last couple of years. And I think word is getting around that we have done that, and that we're providing increasing supports to our new staff members. So I think that's having a bit of an impact, as well as our general reputation for the quality of the work that we do and the nature of the teams that we have within our district. So there we are. We will keep doing what we do, and we don't do it for the glory. Apparently. But nonetheless, we do it anyway. So thank you.
It's very important and appreciated. Any questions about human resources? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll move on to the finance update.
Yes, thank you. I realize we're coming up to the end of our fiscal year, so thought it would be important to give yet another financial update. The last one was provided, I think, might have been early April. So we continue to have good news on this front, so a big sigh of relief there. We are projecting still a deficit, but a smaller one, about $400,000 at this point. That has dropped from $1.4 million that we had passed at February. And in April, we had reported we were down to $1 million deficit. That has continued to decrease simply because of two factors. The first of which is our continuing ed program has done incredibly well this year through the hard efforts of our amazing staff and our leadership in continuing to take on new enrollments and to ensure completions. Again, that's a very difficult thing to predict in January of every year, what the enrollments and completions are going to be. So we have continued to outstrip the service delivery that we anticipated for that program, which has brought in some extra $400,000, which is amazing. And we actually have continued to see a decrease in substitute costs. Now, not to say that there aren't, still absences, and not to say that they aren't being replaced, but at the time we projected in January, that was the peak of our absences, and we were hearing around the province that the absences and the replacements were quite an issue. When we utilize that information to extrapolate what the potential costs of replacement would be, they were probably a bit on the high side, and we've continued to sort of see them settle since the post-cold and flu season. So we have gained there by way of reduced costs to the district compared to what we had originally projected at the amended budget timeframe. We've also had some other gains, such as utility costs. We've had a milder than expected winter season, and so that has helped. And the efficiencies of our buildings, when we've installed things like heat pumps, those have been much more efficient in the course of a milder winter as well. So certainly some gains in that area. Not to say that we're not still in deficit. We still are, and we still face a tremendous amount of pressures, as we had discussed earlier this year. But I'd say that this is a positive news story, and wanted to share that update with the board before we headed off into the summer.
Okay, any questions from the board? Trustee Connolly.
So does that reflect in how any kind of cuts that we've had to make or anything like that?
Sorry,
Is there a reflection then in any of the cuts that we've had to make to address the 1.4 million deficit?
No. Yeah. So I think what the decisions that were made were sound and necessary, considering the pressures that we continue to face, the unfunded costs, the threat of tariffs, the costs that we'll have to incur to support enrollment growth. Those are all still factors in contention as we make our way through to next year. And this provides some relief simply for the one-time dollars, because that's what we were utilizing to fund current year deficits, was our accumulated surplus. So this helps to provide a bit of relief on that front.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, old business, then sorry, Trustee Carlson.
Thank you. I actually have a question, and I'm not sure whether it's a motion that can be put forward as I'm wondering if we can ask the city of New West to collaborate or engage with this New West school district before approving any new developments. Are we able to do that?
Sorry, I'm not sure where this is landing on the agenda.
I know. I'm just talking about the long range facilities plan and then going back to finances and going back to a long range facilities plan. That's how my ADHD brain works. That's where it is, where it's landing is we need to know if there's development coming.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's an item we've talked with the city about extensively. There's a lot of limitations in their ability to actually to manage those numbers. But we have, I believe, we've asked them to come and provide a briefing about their process, just so we can understand it a little better. Can you maybe update us, Superintendent?
Yeah, and Bettina may want to jump in, but they've actually engaged us well here over the course of this last 6 months, I would say. And we've been further invited to future conversations about planning for just that. So, the new legislation certainly steps up the game for all municipalities to include partners in those conversations. But they've been very gracious with us in terms of including us in the thinking and have returned to us with preliminary thinking and have been really quite supportive. I don't know if you want to add to that, Bettina.
No, I think you're quite right. The relationship with the city has been certainly collaborative, a desire to work together for mutual understanding of their projects so that it can inform our enrollment projections and the request to the ministry. And similarly, our needs and how they can help support us through the revisions in their OCP and streamlining of any processes. They've been very receptive to things like variance considerations. So I think that the collaboration we have has certainly been very good this past year and look forward to continuing that on. But, I do think that the city is, challenged in that they have legislative requirements that require them to meet certain targets as well. And so I'm not sure we can necessarily do anything other than to share information to ensure that we both have the information we need to have the necessary advocacy and plans put forward so that we're both prepared to meet the upcoming increases in density in this community.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Connolly?
Nothing to do with that. I'm just curious, we kind of touched on summer school, and I'm just wondering if there's how enrollment is for summer school. We generally have received an update. I'm curious if it
Great question.
because we do get asked about that. And
Are staff able to answer that one, Superintendent?
We can find those numbers for you. I know that it's ongoing, but we can get that out to you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to move then to old business. The following administrative procedures have been updated and they're circulated to the board for information. We did have a little discussion, Vice Chair, Chair, and Superintendent, just around clarifying kind of what is the opportunity for trustees to weigh in on those. And it under our current and updated board policy, that is at the coordinating committee table. And I know there was, I think at our first meeting, we were kind of sitting back and not contributing as much, but Superintendent has indicated that trustees are welcome to weigh in and discuss the policies if that, yeah, if there's feedback on those. Have I got that right?
So I think there's coordinating committee is new to us. So what I'm used to is a trustee at coordinating committee. And so there's one trustee's voice along with all of the other partner groups. I think there was a desire or is a desire to not have the trustees' voices overwhelm the others at the table. But we also don't want to create a situation where trustees don't feel like they can they can say what they're thinking or provide their thoughts in that context. So I don't know if we need to re-examine the way it's constructed in policy, but I know just personally, I'm not uncomfortable with that kind of conversation happening there. That's it's good.
Okay, great. Any comments about the flight of APs here or any questions, I guess, from board members? Trustee Sluice.
Yeah, at coordinating committee, we had a brief conversation related to AP 153 advertising, canvassing and commercial solicitation. And I had suggested that we might want to consider procedure number 2, which is community-oriented organizations seeking to use district facilities to display physical promotional materials. And it specifies that they must serve the New West Schools community and that they must use district city civic facilities. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to add like an equity statement here. So for example, there's no girls hockey in New West. And so it might be very appropriate to have a Burnaby girls hockey sign on one of our fences.
Yeah, I think that's something we could certainly put in and then bring it back to coordinating early in the fall and talk about it again. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Okay, new business, numeracy funding. This is a motion brought forward by Trustee Connolly. Maybe we can first, do you want to move it and we'll get a seconder? Consider that moved and seconded. Thank you. Okay, and if you wanted to speak to it.
I think I'll keep it brief. We received some presentations this year, one around literacy and another around numeracy, and the glaring difference was that literacy receives grants to support teachers at professional learning and resources, that type of thing, whereas the numeracy initiatives do not. So just putting forward a recommendation, given that the mandate from the ministry is that all graduating students demonstrate proficiency in numeracy, similar to their mandate around literacy, that we write a letter and ask for some dedicated funding to support training and resources for numeracy programs to help fulfill the provincial mandate.
Okay, it's been moved, seconded, introduced. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Great, thank you. We've tabled the next item. Trustee reports. Are there any highlights trustees would like to share about their activities on committees or otherwise? Trustee Andres.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of things. So a report out from the Anti-Racism Committee. We had our final meeting of the year last week, and I just wanted to wish all the best to District Vice Principal Ken Headley, who has taken a new position, full principalship in another district. He did a lot of work chairing this committee. What stands out for me about Ken and the impact that he has is the number of interventions he had with students, and the way that he's able to connect with people in such a genuine way and share his lived experience and really, be that, I think that safe place for many different people in our district. And so thank you for your work on this, Ken. And I think the board, will need to reinforce this commitment to anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion now that we've lost this kind of big presence in our district. And so I'm excited to see where this work is going to go in the future as we move into the new school year. DPAC meeting at Kikite. I had the privilege of attending this. It's always a good conversation, and so it was really nice to hear from so many different parents. We had a little bit more of an unstructured meeting, but it was really good. And so I just wanted to thank Deepak for bringing all those perspectives always forward to the board, and it was really good. And then finally, I just want to shout out really quickly the amazing carnival at Tweeds. And so it was, I went with my daughter who's going to be attending Kite in the fall and my wife, and we were just blown away. I think there were 400 or 500 people there. There were 6 bouncy castles. There was a DJ booth. It was a lot. And I think it just really shows, I think it shows a couple of things about Tweeds and our district in general is, you know, people want to connect at schools. Like schools are the hearts of our communities. And when we give people the opportunity through incredible hard work from, you know, so many different people, everyone shines. It was just a really beautiful day. And I'm excited to be able to be part of it in a different capacity next year at Kite. So thank you very much, Tweets. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Delaware.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a quick update for the NWPD MOU work that the superintendent, as well as Trustee Slynn and I met with the police chief, as well as the chair and vice chair of the police board. And I'm happy to report back. It was a really positive conversation. I feel like we were well aligned in like the work that we want to do. I also felt like there was a shared commitment in the work that we're wanting to do, as well as a shared commitment in hopefully getting it done pretty quick. So I'm really excited about the work ahead, and I think the next report out will come in October. So thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Trustee Connolly.
Just wanted to give another big shout out to the New Westminster Secondary Musical Theater Program. I attended their What is Love performance and was just once again blown away by the talent showcased at our schools. Yeah, it's quite remarkable, and also was able to attend the June musical review. So that's choir, choir, it's jazz band, student bands. It's and then, you know, great fun at the end. Strings, yeah, it's again blows one away. Just the talent and just seeing the progression. You know, they had the grade 9 band who are remarkable, but just seeing, you know, the grade 12 and some of the audition bands performing was amazing. And I know some of those students are going off to pursue music in their educational pursuits, which is amazing to see as well. I do know that some of our students will be performing at the upcoming Jazz Fest in Vancouver, part of the student jazz program. So would certainly encourage folks to go out and catch that. Yeah, just amazing, incredible, and looking forward to attending 2 of the middle school grad ceremonies this week, and of course the high school graduation as well. Always an exciting time of year. So thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Sluice.
Thank you. We know we have a lot of work to do to get our Indigenous grad rates up, but man, do we throw a good Indigenous grad. Had the privilege to enjoy a beautiful ceremony for those students. Also had the opportunity to attend the School Witch leaving ceremony, which was moving. I really enjoyed seeing some of the neighborhood kids walking, dancing up, and being celebrated. I always enjoy my time with Fraser River Pack and School Witch Pack, and this month was no exception. We had a couple of SOGI meetings this month, and our ongoing focus for the better part of this year and then into next year is really on building a handbook for gender identity, inclusive washroom signage, and seeing through the visibility project that's been that has started with, you know, flags inside spaces and decals on front doors of all of our facilities. Was really pleased to attend and represent the board on our newly formed audit committee this month. Attended the Schoolwich Grade 1 Job Fair, which is always a highlight for me. Spending time with these exceptionally eager Grade 1 students to talk about what a school trustee does was a great experience, believe it or not. Big kudos to teacher librarian Elaine Sue and all the Grade 1 teachers for pulling this together. I did my very, very best to not leave the impression that my salary is $90 million. I also had a chance to stop in at the CUPE staff barbecue on Sunday and connected with a number of staff who work in our schools. Really appreciate the invitation. The weather held up and they had a great spread of food and some games. It was a really fun, family-focused event, and just wanted to say well done to CUPE 409 exec. Finally, I was able to attend the district scholarship and bursary award ceremony this month, and there were just so many impressive students. But I do just want to take a minute to highlight one of them. Yudia Opigo is an athlete, an activist, an organizer, and a scholar. And her photo was up when Geraldine was doing her presentation. She won a number of community awards, but also has been awarded that very impressive $80,000 scholarship from UBC, which supports Black students in their post-secondary pursuits. Had the opportunity to transport Yudi to and from basketball games this year and got the opportunity to know her just a tiny bit. She's a really impressive human, and I know she's going to continue to impress. Thanks.
Trustee Carlson.
Wow, so much going on. So I'd like to start by thanking everyone for their support this year. I've been a trustee for less than a year and a half. Feel we've accomplished so much, yet still have so much more great work to do. I'd also like to thank those who've supported me and my family through my personal challenge, my fight with cancer this year. It was an unplanned detour in our path, and I'm so thankful, as is my family, for all the support the community has shown us during this time, and I'm so happy to be here. I am getting stronger every day and look forward to the day when I get back to feeling my true self. With that, I do have to set some boundaries and let you all know I can't accept numerous text messages and phone calls over a few days regarding agendas I put forward. I need to have questions or suggestions mailed to me in writing or bring them to the open meeting. I need things in writing. I can't accept numerous phone calls. I know we all want to meet people where they're at, so I really thank you all in advance for respecting where I'm at right now. Lastly, and most importantly, I'd like to congratulate all students and staff of New West. I've had the absolute pleasure of attending so many events this year, many of them in the last month, including the June review that Trustee Connolly spoke about. I do have to say, we've talked about the fantastic students, and I echo that they are so talented, but I'd like to give a huge shout out to our fabulous instructors. Our students are so lucky. I was also very pleased to attend the CUPE retirement tea, where it's lovely to see teachers that are retiring, but also to reconnect with a number of them that have retired in the past and to catch up with them. It was fantastic. The Indigenous grad ceremony, I was proud to see some of my previous dance students there and their friends reaching this milestone. Yep, they made me feel proud but old. I was also able to sneak in a bit of the SNL theater show that same evening and enjoy the script writing, performing, the great sense of humor of this group. I wasn't able to attend the ceremony of the Woven Future closures, but I've admired it, and I'm so impressed with how the students visualize their future goals, and they put those into this intricate artwork. If you haven't seen it, it's incredible. So much. The Royal Westminster Regiment ceremonial review. So proud to see a number of our NWSS students be involved. And just this past weekend, I was happy to be painting a house with Trustee Sluice, the Woolworks house, and I'm hearing that there'll be some students, Trustee Andres, that'll be doing some finishing touches. So fantastic. They're all working together and yeah, for the betterment of our community. I wish I was able to attend all events, but please know I'm supportive of all students and hope you are all very proud of your accomplishments this year. I'm looking forward to the graduation tomorrow night and volunteering at the dry grad afterwards. And I'll end by echoing what our superintendent said earlier in the meeting. We have an amazing staff and an amazing community. I'm so proud to be a part of it. Thanks and have a great summer, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Busy month. Awesome work. I'll just mention a few things. It's always an honor to be part of the Indigenous graduation ceremony. It was great to recognize those students and to attend a luncheon with our newly formed Indigenous Education Council. That's the first time I've had an opportunity to meet the members of that council. They have a really onerous and important role in guiding our board and directing our use of targeted funds for Indigenous students. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from them and appreciate all of Geraldine's work supporting them. And we'll be hearing more from that body and hopefully have an opportunity to meet a few more of the members. So many meetings, but just I'll mention maybe some of the work to make sure that our superintendent gets the evaluation that he is due. And then I was also delighted to attend the musical theater performance, the year-end show of the high school music program. And I was not there, but heard about the dance show, and just all of those are such a testament to the work of those educators. Incredibly dedicated and hardworking and talented, and the students. Was lovely to be part of the Teachers Union and CUPE co-hosted this year, I think for the first time, a retirement tea, which was a really, really nice event to recognize some folks who are wrapping up their full-time educational career. But I do always encourage people to consider coming back on call these events. And there were a few other meetings in there. I just wanted to reflect at the end of the school year that this board about a year ago went through a really laborious and interesting process and selected a new leader in our superintendent and in our associate superintendent, who have both hit the ground running, joined our incredible leadership teams, and I think it is remarkable where we're at now at the end of that year. Just so much done. I think such a great shift in district culture, and there's so many small and big changes I think we're all feeling. So very grateful to all of you for your work. And we have a great strategic plan. We've done a whole bunch of advocacy, and I just think we're in really good shape for next year. Thank you. We're at the question period. So welcoming questions on any matters on this agenda or that arose. So anybody in person or online. Just checking my... I've dropped my Zoom actually, so I'm going to need someone else to watch that.
Christy Oxley.
Okay, Christy Oxley online, please go ahead.
All right, just doing the sound check. Can you hear me?
It's a little bit quiet, but go ahead.
All right, I'm going to try to come a little closer. You just get a really close-up view of my face. I'd like to start by saying, listening to the student symposium information at the beginning of the meeting, that was really interesting. It's especially interesting to see where our thoughts align. And so I'm just going to want to take the opportunity to make a couple of comments. We heard about counseling and specifically the concern of having a VP as a counselor. I think that the students outlined that really, really well, but I suppose I would also just add, it's also asking another middle school VP to do double duty, counselor and VP. What we continue to hear from our teachers around the district is just how much they've appreciated the additional release time for VPs around the district. That release time that's being used to support our members and our students. So hopefully in future years where we have additional budget at our disposal, we'd love to see perhaps some additional release time for the VP at QMS and a moving away from having counselors also covering as VPs. Consent education. It's great to hear that the middle and high school students are appreciating that work that's happening there. Would love to see an expansion of that, especially with a focus on elementary as well, and perhaps an expansion from halftime. There was a comment about clubs and sports, and specifically wanting to see additional or maybe a removal of some of the restrictions there. I just wanted to take an opportunity to give a shout out to all of our teachers who are giving up their time to voluntarily run clubs and sports at the various schools. The other day, somebody said that there are approximately 80 clubs that are running at NWSS. So that's 80 clubs that teachers are giving up their free time to plan ahead of time for these clubs, to support the students who are running them, to give up their lunch hour, their after school time. As a matter of fact, through the 5-block model process, we did hear a request by families and students that we keep that common lunch so that those clubs can continue to move forward. I know that I hear often about everything from track and field and lunchtime intramurals to GSA clubs, gardening clubs, knitting clubs, too many to list. So just taking the opportunity to say thank you to all staff that are, again, giving up their time, quickly grabbing lunch and running to go and supervise. There was also a comment about the wish for additional peer tutoring, and I do want to say one more time that I believe at the high school there used to be a course dedicated to that, and I know that staff would love to see something along those lines return. In terms of the capital plan, there was one comment, I think, by Trustee Andres around climate resilient schools. And you know, I still continue to hear around the district that the portables are very hot, and also Squowitch. I think there was a lot of focus on the high school and the improvements to the cooling system at the high school. It is a school made of glass, and I'm glad to see, I think everybody is really quite pleased that that cooling system is moving forward and the renovations will hopefully be done soon. Squowitch is also a school made of glass. I got notified that there were classes that were almost 28 degrees as of 9:30 in the morning during that first wave of heat earlier in, I think it might have even been late May. I know that maintenance did everything, right? They went in there, they purged the air, they brought in the fans, but it doesn't really cool the building. And I'm sensitive to the idea of like, what can we do in terms of cooling a school that doesn't include costly renovations and cooling systems. But you know, I'm just wondering if, as time goes on, we can revisit the conversation around window awnings, window coverings, perhaps you know, planting some trees, the installation of materials that either absorb heat or that that do not reflect heat. Something that we can do to provide some relief there. And I guess I just throw out there that if we were getting some of our new school builds approved, then perhaps we could get rid of some of those portables, and then the heating and cooling issue wouldn't be a problem. And then finally, I just want to say thank you for putting forward the motion around dedicated funding for numeracy. I know that our numeracy facilitator, Josh Angiola, has been doing that work for quite a few years, and he's only one person. And I hear, as I talk to my my teaching colleagues, just the wonderful work that has been done. And I can just imagine what more could be done if there was dedicated funding. Great. And I guess I'll take the opportunity to say have a wonderful summer. It's, I guess, the last board meeting of the year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy. I don't think any of those required a immediate response. I think there was a couple of pieces to follow up on, if that's okay. Any other questions online or in person or comments? Okay, seeing none, then we are at there is a report. Oh, Okay. I thought you'd be coming up. No worries. We good. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you all. All right. My name is Laura Kwong. I'm the chair of the District Parent Advisory Council in New West. Quick note on the student symposium reporting out by NW Student Voice. I thought that was compiled in a very thoughtful and comprehensive way. So well done to Student Voice. I thought they had some very good recommendations for concrete ways to improve student well-being and school experiences. DPAC is wondering if there is longitudinal tracking by the district of the issues that are raised each year through Student Voice Symposium. For example, the issues with bathrooms seem to come up repeatedly, bullying and exclusion, etc. So tracking and I guess reporting out would be nice. Last week, on behalf of the BC DPAC Coalition, I presented to the Provincial Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services. Our coalition represents 11 DPACs around the province, representing over 292,000 students in BC. We had 3 asks for public education in the 2026 budget. First, increases to base funding and all special purpose funds to reflect full economic inflation costs borne by districts, and increased funding to address rapidly rising benefits costs. Second, we asked for increases to the base funding formula to reflect the full cost of inclusive education. And we used our district as an example where we're spending $17.4 million annually on inclusive education, yet only receiving $9.7 million from the province. That $7.7 million difference is made up from operating and essentially cutting off one hand to save the other. So further to that, these funds, both the designated plus the additional operating funds, are still not fully meeting the inclusive education needs of our students. And third, we requested a 5-year plan to meet the capital funding gap as identified by the BC School Trustees Association. And we also noted that next year we would not like to see new announcements about old funding. We also participated in the Canadian Standards Association, so CSA, which is an independent organization. They're not a federal organization. They provide recommendations that governments can adopt in things like building codes or, sport and recreation facility design, etc. But it's not the federal government. So the CSA standards opportunities for the design, construction, and maintenance of K-12 education facilities. So in this conversation, the discussion included main school facilities, portables, modulars, and outdoor spaces. And insights from this seminar are going to be used to inform CSA's investigation into the potential role of standards within K-12. So this was a really interesting seminar. There were stakeholders from across Canada and from across industries and roles within and adjacent to public education. So the main topics raised for potential standards were air quality, accessibility, and the use of portables and modulars were the primary areas. Tomorrow evening, we are going to be participating in the Ministry of Education and Childcare's Forum for DPACs to provide feedback on school boards in school age care and the topic of childcare on school grounds. That was their title. I did not write that. Anyway, so we're unsure what they're looking for from DPACs, but we're happy to be engaged by the ministry on this topic. And regarding heat in the portables, looking within our own district, we're wondering what sort of conversations, if any, have happened with the City of New West regarding support for upgraded electrical infrastructure. We know this is a barrier, this is questions that we get from parents. Why isn't the city helping us out on this? So a public answer on that would be helpful. When it's 23 degrees outside, it can be 33 degrees or warmer inside a portable. And we're also wondering if perhaps now is the time for developing a process for prioritizing some portables for cooling. We understand that financially it's not possible to implement cooling in all the portables. The ministry does not support that, so it's coming from operating funds. But it looks like portables are going to be here long term, and the heat issues are not going to be going away anytime soon as well. So perhaps prioritizing for those with significant sun exposure or portables that are used by younger grades who might be more sensitive to heat. And as Mark noted, discussed at our DPAC meeting, Scowich families would also love an update on the timeline for their cooling system. So at our DPAC meeting this past month, we welcomed Jen Arbo from the City of New West as a special guest to share information on the city's new policy implementation regarding public events and food trucks. We had a lot of questions for Jen and very much appreciated her time to come out and talk directly with PACs. And we'd like to acknowledge and thank the board and the district for the advocacy directed to the province around our capital needs and portables funding. DPAC is continuing the advocacy that we've engaged in over the summer. We are going to be hosting a booth at the New West Farmers Market on July 10th and again on August 7th, where we're going to be continuing the letter writing campaign that we started this past spring, encouraging big and little people to write letters to Premier Eby, Minister Bear, and Minister Ma, outlining their hopes, dreams, and unmet needs for public education. And we also have a meeting set up with MP Jake Swatsky at the end of this month on our wish list of items to discuss as mental health issues for youth, climate change adaptation and mitigation costs and opportunities for school districts, and impacts of federal policies on school district planning. And lastly, regarding capital funding for Queensborough secondary expansion, DPAC would like to note that families in Queensborough have continued to express support for a high school expansion on their side of the Fraser River. The alternative is continuing to attend NDUB, where enrollment pressures have already impacted and will continue to impact their learning environment. I think the average school size, around 600, 900 students, I understand, is what's kind of deemed optimal for student learning, provides a balance between academic opportunities, teacher satisfaction, and a sense of community. And Trustee Andres, I'm very sorry to say that the Kite Pack cannot hold a carnival anything close to what Tweeds does, because we do not have the space. Our last few attempts were logistical nightmares, and we have given up on holding large community events like that. And I think that Tweeds, after their 16 classroom modular is placed on their school site, they will be faced with the same barriers to holding school-wide community events that Kite is. So thank you for the opportunity to share this update from DPAC.
Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. Okay.
There's a reason we're not doing it again.
There was a couple of questions staff are in a position to answer. There was one, I guess the student survey tracking, I think that's maybe why I was asking the question around kind of some more formal reporting back, because we know staff look at those results really closely, but we don't always see the report. Sorry, electrical, I'm gonna hand that over.
Yeah, electrical, I don't think it's for a lack of the city wanting to support it. It's just a really expensive endeavor. And I think their budgets too are stretched. And so the way that we've been able to support that is to request out of ministry grants funds for electrical upgrades. So that was a successful request that we had made for Lord Tweedsmuir last year, but got funding this year to be able to support that. The rationale was just the growing environment of the Tweedsmuir community in terms of either supporting additional portables in future, or if we were successful in getting the modular expansion, we wouldn't be able to proceed to that project without the electrical upgrade. And so if there are other schools that require that level of support and that planning, we are going to have to put through those requests, and those are at the mercy of the government to see if they are able and want to fund those priorities.
Can you speak to Squelch? Yeah.
Right, the cooling. So Squelch cooling has been one of our top requests for a couple of years. 2 years ago, it was prioritized as number one, wasn't supported. And then last year we had to prioritize the electrical upgrade at Tweeds because of it was a greater capacity concern. This year, our intent is to put the Squelch cooling back at the top of the list. Unless something drastic happens between now and then that prioritizes a different project. But at this point, we would be looking to support that as our number one school enhancement program request. The challenge being that, of course, the retrofit of cooling is quite expensive. A couple of years ago, I think the cost estimate was 1.8 million. It surely has gone up since that time. So that I think that continues to be a challenge for us is the rising cost pressures of those kinds of projects.
Go ahead.
The longitudinal data we haven't tracked, but we will. So what we'll do is 12-month staff over the summer. We'll pull together the data from the last several years, combine it with this year's, and sort of build sort of a depiction of trend, the sort of recurring themes where we've heard about improvement during those presentations. And then, as we'd said earlier, that'll form part of our presentation back to student voice as well as be present in our operational plan.
Wonderful. Go ahead, trustee Connolly.
Just a follow-up question with regards to that. Have we ever priced out the addition of awnings, or are we just sticking strictly with the cooling system as the focus?
I don't think we have priced out the awnings. I think the ministry are looking to be quite conservative in terms of future builds on sort of any sort of structures that sort of jut out. Typically have not been overly supportive in the last few projects about that. Not to say that cooling is less extravagant, but yeah, I think some of the structures that ministry is looking to support are much more simplified. They're looking to create guidelines where the design is economical, so to speak. So things like large awnings or overhangs are not going to be supported going forward, which necessitates then other abilities to cool, less glazing or cooling structures and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you so much, Deepak and NWTU. I don't see anybody else online or in person. Okay. Then no, the next regular board meeting will be on Tuesday, September 23rd. There is a record of our May 27th in-camera meeting, and we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks.